Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
And welcome to Overwatch Central. So, placements. We're a little bit into Season 4 and most of us have done our placements by now. And now the way that placements have worked in the past, especially for Season 3, have somewhat annoyed and upset a good portion of the community. And now that we know that it's a fairly similar thing for Season 4, in this video we wanted to start talking about what Scott Mercer's response to the placements was, what the initial problems with the system are, myth bust some common misconceptions with it, and at the end listen to some of your feedback on the system from Twitter and just have a little bit of a discussion about it.
We're pretty happy with how placements work right now, but we're keeping an eye on them all at the same time. As we mentioned last season, we do lower your SR a bit initially, but you also gain that SR back as you play. We're trying to provide players with a positive initial experience of gaining SR at the beginning of a season without the matchmaking chaos of a more complete reset. It's not perfect, but we like the results so far. This is one of the sections of Scott Mercer's massive response talking about a tighter MMR system. We did that video last week basically, which you can see on screen now. We've definitely noticed the trend of finishing just below your rank for the end of the last season, and we kind of like that aspect of it, to be honest. Just being placed below your average rating of last season basically is a good way to start your season off right. When you win, you gain a lot of SR, and when you lose, you barely lose any, to be honest. On that subject of placing near your end of last season ranking, Scott has some important information to share. To clarify one thing, your initial SR that we use to matchmake you in placements isn't simply based off the final result of the previous season. How you place in seasons before the prior one also factor into the calculations. Of course, how well you do in your placements matches also matters. So this somewhat dispels the myth that end of season rankings aren't the be all and end all of your placement rank. It still feels like this is the case for a lot of people, but I guess there's just more at play here.
I think the main problem with placements, especially after you've done the first set that has, given you your ranking, is that they are fairly pointless and a bit arbitrary. 10 games to place you there or thereabouts where you were before, it just seems not really necessary. I think I'd much rather be given that placement that I was given after 10 games at the start of a season, as opposed to playing games and believing that they have more of an impact than they originally do. Because of this, the system puts a lot of pressure on players to perform for these games, when in reality they are closer to normal ranked games than MMR resetters. But this is the problem. I guess it's easy to assume that nothing has been changed since the Season 3 placement or MMR. If Scott doesn't say anything about how matchmaking and placements work, then I don't think anybody would be able to tell, which I think is a really big problem. We don't need to know how the system works, we're not supposed to, it's meant to be like that. But we want to know what is being changed, what they are planning to change, and how they plan to fix any problems down the line. Real quick, another problem I think we have as well is that anybody can queue with anyone during their placements. A plat can queue up with a GM. I did this with Josh and Mist one time on my old plat account, and it made the matchmaking incredibly wonky, so I would try and limit this somewhat just to stop the MMR from going completely doolally and putting us in a 6 stack of top 500s. When you're playing on an old plat account, that shouldn't happen.
The main complaint I see is that I won all of my 10 placement games and then I got placed plat, but someone like IDDQD famously lost 8 of his games last season and got GM. How is this possible? Well, it boils down to the level of game you're playing. IDDQD is in high top 500 games constantly, and even though he lost 8 of those games, the game knows better than to throw him down to Masters or Diamond or even lower, as he just doesn't belong there, regardless of how badly he played. Whilst say you're in low plat and aiming for low to mid diamond, winning 10 games just won't catapult you all the way there. These really are just 10 normal ranked games in disguise. Not to mention you might be playing 10 high gold rated games and win them all. It's impossible to gauge exactly what's going on. When we did the Season 4 guide video, we got so many questions about how to exploit the placement system, when to play, group size, do medals matter, and that sort of stuff. I think too many players put too much faith in that a good run in their placements will drag them up out of the area that they are in, and it unfortunately just doesn't work like that. The issue is that the placement system doesn't just take that information from those 10 games, but the hidden MMR and SR of the last 100 games. If you've been stuck in gold for the whole of Season 3, then whether or not it's justified, the matchmaker will put you in gold again with how it's currently working.
So now that we've gone over the actual problems with the system, how do we solve any of this? Well, Scott's already made a big step in the right direction with the first suggestion, and that's to be more upfront about what these placements are meant to indicate. We now know that the end of season rank isn't the only factor in defining your new skill rating, but also that the system does place you lower than where it thinks you belong. This information is useful to have, and it's useful to bear in mind. I really don't want to know everything about the system. It's a blind system for us for a reason. But just confirmation on whether or not these conceptions about the system are true or not are incredibly incredibly helpful, just so you know where your anger can be placed. Second, I think it's simply lowering the placement games down to 5 or 6. 10 games to throw you back to where you were before just seems a bit too much. For those initially placing for the first time, I think 10 is perfectly fine, but over that I would try and lower the amount. There just seems to be a lot of pressure on these games and people wanting to perform in them when really there isn't much change with them. It's just 10 normal ranked game from last season's, which I guess, yeah, is a pretty big problem.
So we sort of asked what you guys thought about placements, if you thought they were broken or not. We did a Twitter poll as well, but yeah, here are some of the replies. So @It'sTechShark said, if you get placed low once, there's no way to change that with new placements. If you had bronze, you'll probably be bronze. And to be honest, you're kind of right. Like we went over in this video, you can't just place a lot higher randomly. But let's be real here, in between the seasons, that one off-season gap, you've probably not gone from being in bronze to suddenly being in maybe high plat or diamond. That sort of increase in skill just is unnatural overall in any area, not just in Overwatch, which is why you will place fairly close to where you ended last season, or where you were at for most of last season at least. A lot of people also pointed out that what's the point of a new season if it's based off the last one, and this is kind of a more interesting conversation as it kind of talks more about the continuation of you continuing where you were at last season rather than starting fresh. But to be fair, this ties back to the master reset and the full reset that was also brought up in the post that we showed in this video, and just resetting fully would just be chaos for the whole season basically, and it just isn't an option right now. Of course, among these Twitter results we saw a lot of people bring up the fact that even if you played placements together, you could place very far apart from each other. I'm not gonna go through the specifics of this, but again, you might have just been at different skill levels the last season and the seasons before that. For example, when I played my placement games with Valkia together with Ryan and a bunch of other people, I placed at around 3.4k I believe, and Valkia placed at 4.2 or 4.1k. So the difference can be huge, and sometimes you might not even be able to play with each other after the placement games due to the massive skill gap. Anyway, that's it basically for the community responses. We always like chatting with you guys on Twitter, so make sure to follow us at OW Central to keep an eye out if we do any more of these posts, and you might end up in a video, who knows.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Do let us know what you think in the comments below. I know this system hasn't got a lot of people particularly happy, but if the placement system places you lower than where you think you belong, prove them wrong. Earn that rank that you think that you deserve, and you've got 3 months to do that. So show Blizzard and their matchmaking system they are wrong and you deserve to be higher. But that's it for this time. Take care. We'll see you then.